All right. Welcome to Monday to yoga. Today you're just wanna have lots of props hanging around. It's gonna be a very slow, gentle class. I just had knee surgery, so we are mainly going to be focusing on low body flushing, lymph flushing, so getting swelling out of the low body. Nice gentle stretches to open up the joints and some spine stuff. I know we've been doing a lot of spine stuff lately, but we're going to keep going with that spine stuff because if you're dealing with an injury at all, chances are you're not sleeping great. I know I'm not sleeping fabulously. And also some digestion, which goes along with the spine, because if you're not sleeping great, your digestion is probably off, or if you've been on heavy medication, you might not be pooping at all because you're probably constipated for at least the first few days. So, yeah, sorry guys, today's class is all about me. And we're going to start off in a nice restorative pose called Lights Up the Wall. So you'll need a wall or a bed or a dresser, a door, just something that's, knee high or higher, probably. And I'll talk you through a lot of different options in case you don't have an actual wall. So we're going to do this pose twice. And I think this first version, we're going to do it without a block or without anything under the hips, just a good old legs on the wall. I do like, especially if I don't have a full length wall, so like if I'm doing this on my bed, like on the floor with my legs up the side of my bed, that kind of, when you're up, your knees will kind of bend and then it doesn't feel like you can be fully supported. And then you're not getting the relaxation that we really want to come out of this. So I like to, sometimes even when I have a full wall, use a strap or a towel, something I can wrap around my legs to hold them securely. So if you've got a strap, it's really nice to do it ahead of time. You want to, right above the knees is where you'll hook it in and set so if you've got a clip, if you've got one of the buckle things, this is a moot point. But if you've got the clip, you want to bring the legs together and then just not super tight, but just tight enough that they can't really move a lot. And then you'll undo it. And then it's already set for when you put the legs up the wall. Easiest way to do this, I find, is to come on your side, squish your booty right up into the wall, drop that shoulder, and then swing the legs up the wall. You want to ideally, if your low back and hamstrings will allow, have your low back flat on the ground and your butt right up into the wall. Then if you've got the strap option, so if you don't have a full wall, you definitely want to have a strap or some form of securing of the legs. I find it nice even when I do have a wall. Then I can really relax all the musculature in my legs. So if you're finding that getting your butt into the wall and your low back on the ground is just next to impossible, then you can add some padding in under the low back so that you can get your butt right up against the wall. And then you just get cozy. I find if I'm really looking for a restorative pose, I like to take my meditation cushion. You can take just a folded blanket or a pillow, and I put it right over my belly. And this just, I don't know, it's kind of like a warm blanket. It just really is grounding in the body. And then drop the arms out to a comfortable place. You want to just take a couple deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth, and really allow yourself to melt here. So this is one of my all-time favorite restorative poses. It cures kind of everything that has to do with the nervous system. So if you've been traveling and jet lagged, this is a great way to induce sleep. The version we're going to end with is the best version for inducing sleep. So I'll remind you of that when we get there. Helps to balance your hormones, helps to reset your internal clock. So that's why it's great for jet lag. If you have a hard time falling asleep at night, this is a great pose to come into because it just downgrades the whole nervous system and gets you ready for relaxation. It's also great for those of us that maybe have swelling in any of our joints or an injury. I do this every night and probably a couple times during the day right now because I want to get any swelling that's in this knee to come down. If you have edema, so fluid in the ankles, this is a great support for that. Not just because gravity moves that fluid down, but also because edema is usually attached to the kidneys and adrenals. And this pose is supportive of the kidneys and adrenals because they are really tied in hormonally and nervous system wise. If our kidneys are not happy, if our adrenals are not happy, our nervous system is not happy, and vice versa. So, this is really just an amazing, I think really is the king of all restorative poses. If you only do one restorative pose ever in your life, let it be this one. And if you find that your toes or your feet start going numb, you can always bend the knees and let the knees drop as low as they can go. It'll kind of send blood back up the legs, and then you can come back into legs at the wall. And if you do have tight hamstrings or low back, you will notice that it's a pretty significant stretch when you first start off. And the passiveness of this pose will actually work in your favor to allow those muscles to really soften. And they'll release the spasming, and it will open you up in a whole new way. So if you find that this is a challenging pose, this is the pose for you because it's helping not just stretch out those muscles that are very tight, but it's also calming your nervous system at the same time. So anybody that has really tight low back and hamstrings and has a hard time getting in this 90-degree angle, this really is the best thing you can do for your body. You do want to stay in this pose for about 5 minutes, 10 if you can. We're just going to stay a little bit longer because we are going to do quite a few things based off of this position today. So even if you've got a pretty heavy injury going on in your lower body, these are all poses that should be accessible to you. you've got your strap, you're just going to unhook it. And you can keep that blanket or pillow on your belly if you've got it there. We're going to open up into a straddle. So we've started to open up the backs of the legs and also balance out our nervous system. And now we're going to start to work the inside of the legs. So we're opening up into a straddle. The reason I like to always do this one second is because it gives yourself a little bit of a break in the feet. But again, if your feet are just like super tingly, bend the knees, give them a second, whatever you got to do, and then you can come back. And you're really relaxing here, allowing the weight of the legs to pull you deeper and deeper into this pose. If it feels like it's just too much, you can always add support in the form of blocks or pillows or whatever you got under those thighs. Just kind of wedge it in there and give a little support. You want to encourage your body to take slow, deep breaths here. And you might find every minute or so there's that desire for that really big sigh to come out of the body. And that's awesome. That's showing you that your body is actually slowing itself down. The nervous system is regenerating. These gentle legs up the wall poses are also great if you're menstruating, because while it gives us all the benefits of an inversion, it doesn't give us the contraindication of being upside down. Some women feel amazing being upside down during their cycle, and for others, it's just not a great thing. In general, Ayurvedically and yogic speaking, we like to keep the energy flowing downwards, which means being upright. However, if your body likes being upside down, you do you. I am a firm believer in everybody knowing what is best for their own body. Come out of this pose, I like to put a very gentle bend in the knee and support with my hands, and then use my hands to push my legs together, back of the legs up the wall, and then just give them a second to chill here. And again, if your toes are getting really numb, take a moment, bend the knees into the chest. And you are going to want to prep with a strap or a towel or a scarf, whatever you got. And then we're going to take the strap around that left ball of the foot, so below the toes, above the arch. And that left foot is going to stay active. So I'm flexing the foot. I'm using my arms to gently apply pressure downward. So I'm peeling the toes back into a deeper flex. And you really want to make sure that you're not hanging on really high up on your strap here. You want to have a nice low grip so that you can really use your back muscles to pull your elbows down towards the floor so you don't compromise your shoulders and your chest. So we don't want to be creating tension in our upper body while we're trying to release tension in our lower body. We want to make sure that we are supporting both of our upper and lower at the same time. So something you might notice, if you take a look at my foot here, I'm kind of sickled in. This is a really common thing that happens. You will sometimes see it go the opposite way, but that's a little less common. What I want you to make sure of is that your foot is flat as if you were standing on the floor. So you might need to kind of, pull the foot one side or the other using the straps. This might be plenty for your body if you've got tight hamstrings and a tight low back, especially if legs up the wall is hard enough. This right here might be plenty for you. If you want to go deeper, you're going to just continue to pull down and then start to pull away. So you pull the leg back towards you. And again, you're making sure that foot is parallel to the ceiling. Your shoulders are down. They're away from the ears and they're pressing into the mat. So I'm using my biceps here to pull this leg. And as I pull the leg away from the wall, I want to think about lengthening my hip, my butt, and the top of my femur where it goes up into the hip joint into the wall. So I don't want to compromise my connection with the wall in order to get my foot away from the wall. I want to maintain that connection and then from there, take the foot. And as with any yoga pose, I'm always talking to you guys about opposition, finding opposition in every pose. How can you expand? Where do you need to contract? So here, I'm reaching up through my heel and I'm pulling down, not just through my toes, but through my femur bone, through that thigh bone. I'm pulling the toes away from the wall and I'm pressing my femur towards the wall. And see if you can take it a little bit deeper, find a little more opposition. So we want to get a little more into the outer left leg here. So you're going to take the strap into your right hand. Keep this pulling away from the wall action, sinking the femur into the wall action. So I stay connected through my sitting bones and butt, but I'm just going to gently pull that leg across my body. Now you might not need to go far. I mean, I moved 6 inches, 8 inches maybe, and I'm getting an intense stretch from the back of my knee, the outer back of my knee, all the way into my hip. Depends on how open your IT bands are. And I'm doing the same thing. Femur into the wall, toes away from the wall, and now I've just gently tugged across the body. But my pelvis is maintaining the same position that it was just in. Bring the leg back center, set it back into the wall, and then you can just wiggle your right foot into the strap and release your left foot. Again, you need to take a second, bend those knees, hug them in. And then once you're situated, you want to, again, the strap is below the toes, above the arch, so behind the toes, in front of the arch. And I'm looking to make sure that I'm not sickling my foot inwards or outwards. I'm nice and flat as if I was standing on the wall. This left leg relaxes, and now the right foot engages. I'm pulling down using my back muscles and my bicep muscles. So keeping the chest open, the shoulders away from the ears, shoulders pressing into the mat. My hips are connected to the wall. And then I'm going to keep thinking of sending the top of this right thigh bone into the wall as I pull outwards. Now again, if you're finding it's challenging just to be in legs up the wall, there's no need to pull the leg away from the wall. You can just pull the toes down. And as this foot comes away from the wall, I look for that opposition. So I reach through my heel, I pull down through my toes and my femur. The toes are pulling away from the wall and my femur is pushing into the wall. I'm just noticing if there's a tendency to internally rotate or externally rotate, really keep it centered. Just notice if you're holding tension in any place where you don't need to. Like your shoulders, your jaw, your tongue, your forehead. Another nervous system calming thing that, I guess, benefit, you would say, that these legs up the wall poses offer you is that typically they're longer held poses. So, very similar to yin yoga. We're holding these poses longer, and that gives the muscle spindles a real opportunity to relax. Because anytime we are stretching, it takes our muscle spindles about 60 seconds to essentially think that we're not trying to hurt them. So when you come into a stretch, that first 60 seconds or so, the body actually contracts. Those muscle spindles contract. And then after about a minute, they think, okay, you're not trying to hurt me, and they will relax, which is why longer held poses end up creating a bigger difference in your body. We're going to take this across the body now. So the strap comes into the left hand. And we're going to maintain the connection with our sitting bones, with our butt cheeks into the wall as we pull the leg across just as much as you need to get that stretch. And on this side, I actually am getting a stretch from my ankle all the way down the outside of my leg, just from, I don't know, what is that? Again, 8-9 inches. You're going to bring it back center. Go ahead and release that strap. Again, just relax into the legs. Stay here. Don't bring the knees down because we're about to take them all the way to the floor. If you've got something on your belly, you can set that off to the side. And you want enough space on your right-hand side for you to put your arms straight out to the side. So just move any of your stuff away from yourself. And then you bend the knees a little bit and roll onto your left side. So you're all the way on your left side, but your butt is up against the wall. Your legs are up against the wall. And you're going to bring your arms out. So shoulders on top of shoulder. And we're going to open that right hand up. So we inhale and open up Try to get that arm all the way down. Notice the hips desire to pull up. And if you can see my feet here, how when I open, that pelvis wants to go with it. I want you to resist that as much as possible. So push through that top right foot. As you come over, take it as far as you can, and then you can let that hip go. Okay? So we'll inhale, open, exhale, closed. So just with your own breath pace, you inhale, open, resisting with the right foot, and then at the end, you can let the hip release if it has to. Exhale, close back. So why do we do right side first? So legs to the left, but moving the right arm first. So if you notice, as you do this, there is a lot of stretch and compression happening through the right inner pelvis. And that is where our small intestine and large intestine meet each other. And that is where our large intestine starts to move up and across. So we're moving with digestion. We want to massage that area where small and large intestine meet and encourage our digestion to move up the colon and across to the other side. But if the head can go all the way through the range of motion, bring the head into this full range of motion. And this is actually a really good movement for mobility through the upper back as well. You'll see different variations of this for shoulder blade health. And I have my belly making all sorts of noises as I'm moving through this compression and expansion of the intestines. When you come back onto your side, you're just gonna rest there. Bend the knees a little bit, roll yourself back up the wall. Realign yourself, make sure your butt's right up against the wall. Clear off enough space for your legs to go up next to you. Make sure there's enough room off to the left of you. And then you're bend the knees a little bit. Roll onto your right side. So stack the hips, stack the feet, stack the shoulders, palms together. And now we move into the left side. So as I inhale, I open all the way up. I resist with that left leg. And at the last second, I can let the body come into that full movement and the hip drop back. The exhale back center. So now you'll feel that we're opening up from that transverse colon into the descending colon. You'll come back, center. Take a deep breath. Bend your knees. Bring your legs back up the wall. And before we move to getting into the front of the legs, we will finish up our legs up the wall series with the more restorative towards sleep version of legs up the wall. So for this, you'll need a block or something to elevate your hips with. And you're just going to bend the knees, lift the hips, and set that block right under your pelvis. I find that once I get my the block under the pelvis, I need to scooch my butt into the wall a little bit more. So what this does is elevates the pelvis and starts to send you a little bit more towards a traditional inversion, where we start to get more pressure through the neck and the shoulders. And what this does is, as that blood starts to pool in the neck and shoulders, it starts to turn on our resting response. So this is a really wonderful version of this pose for those of us with insomnia. And you want to make sure that your whole pelvis is supported on this block. And depending on the size of your butt, is going to depend on exactly how far up into the low back the block has to come. So you'll have to find kind of a little happy medium for your body. Again, you've got a strap. You can strap yourself in. And I definitely suggest the strap for those of us that are not working with a full wall. You don't even actually need a wall with this pose. It's with the block under you. There's a lot of times where this pose is actually done in the middle of the floor with just your legs up. Because when you have that strap, you can actually get a pretty good balance of the legs and a nice relaxation pose without a wall. So if you're doing your regular practice and you don't have a wall, but you want this little extra downshift of the nervous system, you can always finish right in the middle of the room with your hips on a block, strap those legs in, just take 30 seconds here, and then come into traditional Shavasana.
I don't know about y'all, but I can feel the difference between traditional legs up the wall and this variation. They literally just don't want to do the rest of class. I'm like, you gotta move. We've got three more poses. But I really like I could just be here for the next 15 minutes and be quite happy about it. So I need to be a big girl and teach the rest of this class. But if you are blissed out where you are right now, please just stay there. So freaking chilled out. Okay, let's do this. So if you're coming with me, you'll unstrap. And then you'll lift your booty up, get that block out, come down into just traditional legs up the wall. And the knees roll over to one side. Oh. Slowly bring yourself back up towards human form. And I like to have lots of props for this because you just never know where your body's at. So we are going to come into Sphinx and Sphinx variations. We've just opened up all the way around the legs without actually gravity, like being upright. So we haven't done the front, the psoas, hip flexors. So I want to do that. I am going to place a little padding here where I'm guessing my knee will be to give myself a little bit of support. So if you are doing this because you have a knee injury, you want to make sure you're not locking that knee out. So essentially, let me show you what this looks like. So my knee is just in front of that, and it just gives me a little bit of support so that my kneecap is not pushing on the ground, but I'm also not in a locked out position. Now, if I was dealing with an ankle injury, I would just move this down. Okay, and then I'd be there. This also works for the knee. It does put pressure on my kneecap, but it doesn't bother my kneecap. So those are two options, one for ankle, two for knees. And then there's a ton of variations depending on how tight your hip flexors are and how much you want to work, in all honesty. So Sphinx pose is just elbows under shoulders, palms down, chest forward. My head is in a comfortable alignment with my chest and shoulders, so I'm not yanking my head forward. Back of my neck is nice and long. And I'm in a nice, lovely back bend here. My pelvis essentially is kind of pinned in a posterior pelvic tilt, essentially, which is what we oftentimes, anterior pelvic tilt. It's pinned is the point. You don't need all the stuff behind it. It's pinned. So you're going to feel this through your abdominals, ideally. It's also a really great pose for digestion. As you can probably feel, you're stretching out the space where your digestion lives, your small and large intestine. And probably right when you first come into the pose, you feel it through the hip flexor psoas, so through the kind of the quads coming up into the hips here. That might go away after you spend a couple breaths here. So options to go deeper, if you need to go deeper, is to move more towards a seal pose where you externally rotate the hands slightly and come up into seal pose. Big thing here is you want to make sure you're not scrunching your shoulders up. I'm going to keep the shoulders down. Again, my chest is open, my collarbones are wide, and my head is in a nice, lovely alignment with the rest of my spine, so I'm not cranking my neck anywhere. You might need to walk the hands out or walk the hands in, depending on your level of flexibility in your knees. Lazy version
is to come up onto bolster or blocks so that you don't put so much pressure on the arms or on the shoulders. So I just find this to be more comfortable because I'm working less in it. And then you relax your butt cheeks so that your pelvis is heavy, and that's going to allow you to get into those hip flexors a little bit more. So we were talking about hip flexors, aka psoas. Give you a little bit of anatomy here. Quads come up into hip flexor, psoas. Psoas goes in under, I'm going to rotate, in under the groin. And one of the heads actually attaches, if you reach back here and you feel the back of your pelvis, so you have an idea of where it attaches on the inside of the pelvis. But if you find that rim of the pelvis, it's on the inside of that. It actually comes in the kind of, can't think of any good anatomical words right now. I'm like, it smooshes against the back of the pelvis. Kind of like if you're putting frosting on the back of your pelvis, that's where it attaches. And the other one attaches up here in your low back on your spine. So this is why when you've got tight quads and you're sitting a lot, you get low back pain. People are like, oh, my low back hurts because I'm sitting, and they think it's just because they are, I don't know. It's just one of those things that people are like, oh yeah, I'm sitting. It's my low back hurts. Like I'm not using it or I'm slouching. And it's not. It's because you're actually shortening the quad muscles, which attach to psoas. And when you allow them to be short for a long period of time, and then you go to stand up and they're like, whoa, homie, we were not ready for that. So this is a really great pose to alleviate that. And if you really allow yourself to soften and relax into this pose, you will feel those two attachment sites softening. And you will feel relief. Keep breathing into that relaxation. Get the legs to relax more, get the glutes to relax more, the belly, the low back, all of it. Come out of this pose. When you're coming out of a deep back bend like this, you always want to do it as gentle and lovingly as possible. So I find that if I'm on blocks or if I'm on my hands, I move them out of the way first and I come down onto my forearms. And then from there, I just gently walk my elbows out one at a time, walking myself down, and then one hand on top of the other, forehead on top of the hands. But I take about 5 breaths before I move. Now, if your body will allow, this is a great opportunity to take a child's pose. My body will not allow, so I'm going to move right straight through and onto my left side. I don't need my knee support anymore. So there's a couple variations of this pose. It's called mermaid pose. Essentially, your legs are long or very, very mildly bent, like tiny bent. And that's just if you're finding it hard to support yourself and you're rolling side to side, putting that little knee bend will give you a little bit more support and stability. So we're working on a little bit more of that hip flexor and also the side waist here. So I'm essentially just hanging out, okay? Sleeping Buddha. If I want to go deeper, I can come up onto my arm, okay? Now, this is one of my favorite poses, and when I've done like a really good yoga practice, I can get this arm quite far back, and it just is like the juiciest thing through the whole side body. And I do actually go against the grain of what you always hear me say, pull your shoulders down. I do usually let that shoulder blade kind of rock up towards the ear. And I find that that gives me a deeper opening through my serratus anterior, which are these little muscles that kind of look like fingers that wrap around the sides of your rib cage. I don't know why, but it feels so good in my body. Just tossing it out there for your body. Now, if you're not looking to work that hard, lazy man's yoga, you can always bring that forearm up onto a block and get your stretch there. So I offer all of those to you. This is like my favorite yoga pose ever. It just feels so damn good. And you're gonna come up. Oh, moving slow. When you do these slow practices, you really need to move slow between the poses. We're just gonna do the same thing on the other side. And then we're gonna take Shavasana. So we get on our side. Start off low, kind of like cooking ribs, low and slow, and then you speed it up from there. If you need to take that knee bend, it's very small, it just adds a little bit of support. If you need to come up onto a block, you can do that. Or you can come up onto your hands. Walk yourself in as far as you need to go. And then, like I said, I like to shrug that shoulder. I just feel like it opens up something real juicy through the ribs. Slowly coming out. And after a really restorative and supported practice, I love just a plain old flat Shavasana with nothing under my knees, nothing under my head, nothing under anything, but just a nice hard floor for my body to be held by. Letting everything relax, pulling completely into the floor. And I'll leave you here today, taking as much time in this Shavasana as you desire.